Okay, we're going to take a look at the game I Will Fight No More Forever, which was originally published by Simulations Canada around 1980, 1981, and it was designed by Steve Newberg. And it's been out of print for a long time. The version we're going to look at now is the new version, version 2 by Compass Games, magazine game. I'm usually pretty hard on those, but I'm quite glad to say that this one is a real delight. They've done a beautiful job on this game. And the map by Brian Miller, the strategic map, is just beautiful to behold. We'll take a look at that in a few minutes. We'll look at the pieces, tell you a little bit about the game, and see if we can get you interested in this classic. Now again, these are short videos, a 15-minute one. I can't tell you everything about the game, but I'll try to show you the highlights and why it is one of my favorite strategic games on the Indian Wars. We have very few titles to choose from in that category, and this is one heck of a good game. Let's take a look. Okay, we'll take a long shot view of the map first, and I'll tell you a little bit about the campaign and how the game works. Now, the map covers more or less the states of Washington here, Idaho, parts of Oregon, Montana, sections of Wyoming, and the Canadian border. Now, a lot of you may not be familiar with the campaign. I'm certainly not an expert at it, though I have read a few books on it, and I had the great pleasure of visiting some of the battlefields in 2013. The strategic situation is this. Chief Joseph and his band of Nez Perce is in land that was traditionally theirs by treaty. And in 1877, the government decided to move the Nez Perce off of their land and put them on a reservation. Chief Joseph's band didn't agree with that, so General Howard, under the direction of the president, was ordered to move them onto the reservation. So in game turns, from game turns 1 to 9, the Nez Perce have to stay within the bounds of the present state of Idaho. This is because at this time the Indian strategists, mainly Joseph and Olcott, didn't know what they were going to do. They wanted to keep their lands, and how are they going to do that? So in the game, it's hard to explain. It's almost like a search and destroy game. For those of you familiar with Sink the Bismarck, you might get the idea. The American units are almost like the British Navy, trying to hunt down and search for the Bismarck. In this case, it's Chief Joseph's band. So what we have on the strategic map is Chief Joseph's band and allied Nez Perce are constantly trying to avoid contact and battle with the U.S. Army, if they can do it. So they're trying to escape from the U.S. Army, and ultimately, after turn 9, the council decided to leave Idaho and retreat into Canada. So Chief Joseph's band, turned 1 through 9, are more or less trying to evade the U.S. Army. From 10 to the end of the game, they're trying to escape back into Canada. Of course, the U.S. Army is trying to prevent that, and various units will come on the board at various times to try and block Joseph. Now, in real life, the first little wee affair that started the whole war was the Battle of Whitebird Canyon, which in effect was kind of one unit here under Captain David Perry, I believe a company, and a band of Chief Joseph's tribe, and they had the battle somewhere around here. The Nez Perce actually won the battle, repulsing and practically destroying Perry's command. That's what started the whole war. To read the campaign is really amazing. You should read about it. It's just an amazing campaign to read about. But we're concerned here with the game. So that's an overview of what the strategic game is like. Now here's where the game really shines. When units of the U.S. Army, in this case cavalry, get into the same hex as an Indian unit, they do a search procedure, which is on these charts, and there's all kinds of modifiers. And if they are successful in contacting the band, then you go to a tactical map and fight out the battle. This is really neat because with the game you get 4 tactical maps. Again, done by Brian Miller and very well done. So the battle takes place in major mountains. You'll be fighting out the action on this major mountain map. Open plains, you'll be fighting it out on this map here. And rolling hills, another different tactical map. And what's that one? Wooded mountains, again a different map. So that's kind of neat. This was an expensive game to produce for a magazine game because you got really, 5 maps with it. Now, I'm glad to say there was very little errata for the game. I find the magazine games are just laced with errata. Fortunately, this game that I can see almost has none. Although they did forget, unfortunately, to include the terrain effects chart. But fortunately, you can download that as a PDF file, and all is well with the world. So that's a brief view of the strategic situation for I Will Fight No More Forever. Let's take a closer look at the counters, because these are very well done. Okay, we'll take a look at the Indian counters first. And yes, I do know that they're Native Americans or indigenous peoples, whatever the modern term you want to call them is. But in 1877, they were called Indians, and that's what we'll call them here in the game. Now, the numbers are interesting. The first number in each of them is the movement point number on the strategic map when doing your regular move. The second move is what Steve calls fast movement, and under certain conditions you can do a fast move and you get this increased movement allowance. The third number is, for the Indians, is the evasion value. How well are they at hiding and getting away from the U.S. cavalry? The higher the number, the better it is. Thus, you see Chief Joseph here, who represents the chief and the horses, the Indian women and children, the village in general, has an evasion value of 0. So it's going to be a lot easier to find than some of these other warrior units. And there's a procedure for taking the search value, which is on the U.S. cavalry units, for example. And these are just a few examples. So you can see the Captain David Perry's unit has a movement of 9, but if it does a fast move, 14, and its search value is 4. So when you're doing the search procedure, in effect, you add the search value, the searching unit, and subtract the evasion value. Then you go to your search table, roll a die with modifiers, and get a result. That's generally how the search procedure works. So the strategic game is very few counters on the board, by the way, for the strategic game, looking for Joseph. Now, at certain times in the game, more units will just appear out of nowhere at various cities and try to cut off Joseph. Of course, we have modern white man with his, telegraph and things like that, versus the Indians who don't really know what's happening all around them. So in that sense, it really echoes the campaign very, very well. Like I said, the counter density on the strategic map is low, which is kind of nice. Your terrain effects chart is over here. The game mainly is composed of open plains, rolling hills, wooded mountains, and major mountains. You also have major rivers, like the Yellowstone, and of course the Missouri. And this one is the Snake, and there's special movement conditions for crossing those. So overall, a very, very nice strategic map. I might point out too that I love this new method of minimizing the hexes. The hex signature on the game is very low with this new procedure of making just the corners show. As a result, a lot of these games now, the maps look a lot better than they did back in the 70s. I'd like to see some of these strategic games utilize this grid more often. Very well done. Now, let's take a look at the tactical counters. Now, there's something to say about that too. If you're playing the game, you're going to need to fine sort the tactical counters. Now, strategic counters don't get a lot for the Indians, but once you get to the tactical counters, there's a heck of a lot of them, and they have to be sorted efficiently if you're going to play the game. Because remember, on the strategic game, when let's say Captain David Perry runs into Lean Elk's band or Red Echo's band, you're going to have to pull those units from the tactical sortation and deploy them on the appropriate map on the tactical map. That's going to take time and effort. And when the battle's over, you'll have to minus the destroyed units and resort them back into their tray or set them aside in case they are encountered again. So that's one of the little wee, I don't even want to call it nitpicks, because that's just a feature of the game. That's the cost of playing on the strategic game and then going to the tactical. And I don't have a lot of experience with the tactical game. I've only been fooling around with the strategic, and I haven't played the game since, 1981 or so. I had the first edition and didn't play it all that often. So I cannot comment too much on gameplay, except that if you have a lot of battles, your game is going to take a while, because it is a 30-turn game. But I think there's potential, the game ending at 25 or 29, I forget which. But ultimately, if Chief Joseph's band escapes into Canada, that's their way of winning the game. They can also win by casualty points, but from experience, I found the Indians don't want to get into too many tactical battles. Indian units just can't afford the casualties, and Indian units tended to break off combat when they took very, very few casualties. So the Indian way of making war is not quite the same way as the white man. Now, Steve has got a great little system for determining the state of contact in these tactical battles, because anyone who's read anything about the Indian Wars knows that whether a party was ambushed, whether they were alerted or surprised, is going to make one heck of a difference. So depending on the result of who's fighting who in a die roll and where it's taking place, every game is going to be a little bit different. Now, I've just done a setup here on a random board with random counters. This may never happen in your game. But for example, let's say Ollicott's band on the strategic map was contacted by Mason and Merrill's band. What you would then do is you'd pull out Mason's and Merrill's tactical units, you'd pull out Ollicott's tactical units, and the lodge counters if they were there. That's the village. And there would be a procedure whereby the Indians would set up on the board, and the lodges would set up usually adjacent to a stream or river, and the army units would come on the edge of the board, and then you'd proceed to fight out the tactical battle. Now, I think that setup covers an alerted status. The Indians know that the cavalry has come on the board, so they're alerted, then you'd fight out this battle. And if it was a surprise attack, a whole different setup would be used. So, on the tactical battles, you've got all kinds of events that can occur. There's going to be a lot of variability in this game. And I'm anxious to actually try it. So I can't really comment on play balance. I just don't know. I'm wondering if the situation is inherently imbalanced. I have no idea. My sense of the thing is if the Indians keep evading, they can probably win this. But if they get into too many tactical battles, they just can't afford the losses. Now, the funny thing is, I was fooling around with some counters the other day, and I had Perry's command, I forget where, in some hex, and I had Chief Joseph's band over here someplace. And Perry went in and found the band. Okay, no problem there. Then we went to the tactical map, and then I sort of went into a Custer's Last Stand, because Perry is only one company, and then he just found himself attacking just about all the Indians in the world here, euphemism, and he just got wiped out. So you have to be careful on the strategic map. When you do find the Indians, you better make sure you've got good reconnaissance and you know what you're getting into, unless you turn up with a Custer's Last Stand scenario. I could mention that the combat results on the tactical table, there's pin results, pin 1, pin 2, units can be destroyed. So the tactical game is a game into itself. I think you could actually just set up a scenario, do some historical research. If you want to redo the Battle of White Bird Canyon or something, just do the research, pull out the units, and fight out it on the tactical scale. Might be fun to try that. So I don't have much more to say about I Will Fight No More Forever. It looks like a fine game, a really well done effort, and a great reprint. If Paper Wars is going to be doing more of this kind of thing, I'm all for it. So that's it for I Will Fight No More Forever. I like the game, and I haven't really even tried it. The last time I tried it was, like I said, back in '81. So is this a review of the game? Well, not really. I mean, my videos here are just introductions to the game to give you an idea of what it's all about. If you're not into the Indian Wars period, I don't know if this is the game for you. But if you have a passing interest in the Indian Wars on the operational strategic level, this may very well be your cup of tea. It's completely different, by the way, than the Indian Wars of the West series by Legion Games. I've got all three of those: Little Bighorn, Rosebud Creek, and Adobe Walls. This is just a different kind of game. Very unusual topic, and thank you, Steve, for creating it. So long for now.